Good afternoon. I'm Jesse Martinez,
I am Nicolas Trevino.
and welcome to Let's Talk Writing. We are going to record a couple of episodes today. Hopefully, get them out as soon as possible.
Yeah, we're doing a double feature. We have to apologize to our fan base.
Our small amount of group of fan base, which is cool. It was pretty cool having to go back to seeing the little episode we made 2 weeks ago and seeing how many people listened to it. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, it was. I was actually impressed by the feedback. I was really enthused by it. So yeah, we're gonna keep going for you guys, and hopefully for the rest of the world, as we had talked about. Anything else to add? I don't know. Happy Mother's Day or
Yeah, happy Mother's Day to all the lovely mothers out there. My mother, my stepmother, my friends who are mothers. All those people.
yeah, my mother-in-law, my mother, my brother's wife, sister-in-law. There you go. And well, both my sisters-in-law actually.
And going back to the whole feedback thing, feedback. Sorry about that. Yes, I noticed that my friend John left a couple of comments on there. Asking to see if we would answer people's questions and all that, and look into what they think, not what we should talk about or anything like that, but just like little points here and there. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to be able for like if people leave comments or people ask us to cover certain aspects of certain things, then we'll do that. We'll definitely talk about what our listeners want to hear about.
Yeah, definitely. Like we said before, this is an interactive exercise. Either we're gonna have some of you here, or you can do it through the Facebook page, which is Laredo Writers Quorum. That's Laredo Writers QUORUM. You can join us wherever you are in the world. You don't have to be from Laredo specifically, but you can leave your comments or your opinions or whatever you want to hear us talk about, and well, we're here to serve.
Well, today our first topic, since we're really not that much, we're not extreme professionals or anything like that. We want to discuss, little things here and there. Our first topic that we're gonna discuss today is writing plot. How to write a not too much of a proper plot, but just having a coherent plot, nothing that falls apart throughout the middle. Because I know there's a lot of things out there, things that even I enjoy that you're watching or you're reading, and this it's just the plot starts to fall apart, or there's plot holes here and there. I mean, not everything has to be perfect, but just writing a proper plot.
Yeah, and economically speaking, if you're looking to publish, that's how you get the hook. That's a hook. That's how you get people uh, enthused, the people excited about your story. If it's a catchy plot, if it's something that they want to read about. When it stops making sense, it's gonna stop making sense to sell it. It's not gonna make any sense for someone to try to sell it or publish it. So this is a very important part of the writing process in all aspects. I mean, for personal reasons, for professional reasons, plot is key.
Exactly, it's one of the most important things out there, because have you cannot just go on writing and writing and writing and then look at everything you've written and be like, all right, how does this make sense? You have to be able to figure out where a story is gonna the characters themselves are gonna be taking the story as well. You can have a really really nice thought out idea, and you're brainstorming and everything, but sometimes the plot is one of the most important keys out there. You cannot just like throw characters into an adventure and be like, all right, well, they're just gonna go do this and do that, because you need some sort of plot in there. You need a little outline for your characters to be following.
Yeah, because pretty much what you describe is everyday life. You just throw people in there and do whatever you want to do and whatever you have to do. And well, we don't want to hear about everyday life because everyday life is boring.
Yeah.
So we want to make it interesting. We want to make it so that the reader, so that even you yourself are satisfied with what you have written, or for the reader, like I said, for them to know that I didn't waste my time dredging through pages and that was just monotonous. There was always something going on. So I guess skipping into the first point that I wanted to make about plot is the action. There has to be constant action. You cannot stay stagnant. You cannot stay idle for more than probably 1 or 2 pages. Maybe in explanations, maybe little things that are gonna add flavor to the story. For the people who become hardcore fans, that's allowed. But you cannot go and write a fantasy story and describe an entire ancient civilization in one chapter, because the civilization is not going to play part and it's just going to be flavor to the story. You just bored the reader with information. Like, the reader wants to know if the character is going to survive, if the wife is going to leave him, if the little kid is going to steal that piece of candy and get in trouble for it. They don't want to know if his family was a bunch of gypsies for a whole chapter, and that's where he got the need to steal. And I'm not being racist here. I'm sorry. It's just I've been watching Hemlock Grove recently. That's where I got the idea. But pretty much that's what people go into. You have to give them something to love, and then make whatever you want out of it. Destroy it, make it better, make it worse. But I think, like I said, action. Don't bore them with unnecessary facts, with things that look like they just picked up a textbook and they're learning. That's what they got to school for, after all.
Yeah, and that's jumping into another point, another probable episode that we might do, where over exposition. Over exposition is really really key when it comes to plot and giving these characters some sort of characterization. And because I mean I've seen plenty of TV shows and cartoons and movies where the character sits down and just tells his entire story and tells the entire world his backstory, and you're just like, well, I don't. There's no more mystery to you. I don't need to figure anything out. I mean, I know why you are the way you are, but at the same time, like, what's there left for you to explain?
Unless it serves a purpose, like Forrest Gump. He explained his story, but there was also that action element. Everything that happened in his life had something that you fell in love with, pretty much. So these points or these rules are also meant to be broken, but in a creative way. So, like Jesse said, if you're going to explain something, if you're going to leave the mysticism out, there's no point to you anymore. There's no point to that character. But it seemed to work pretty well for Forrest Gump, because his life was the action itself. So, there's that whole follow rules, and rules are meant to be broken scenario.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get you. But see, like I see some TV shows, or I don't think anything truly comes to mind right now because there's so many examples. Where you have two characters sitting down next to each other, and they tell you their entire life story in one chapter or in a couple of sentences, and you're just like, well, what else do I want to find out about you? Because I already know pretty much everything and anything when it comes to you. And going back to plot, there has to be some sort of coherence to plot. You cannot just put in actions just to put actions in there. There has to be a purpose to certain actions that characters do. You cannot just have characters be walking around in a forest, and then something happens for no reason, just for action purposes. Like, yeah, it's understandable they have to get into certain fights, but at the same time, if the story just follows that and nothing else, there's no true coherence why they have to do this. Then what's the point? It just seems like it's just a story full of action, but no real story, no real meat to the story. And that's the whole point of plot. You want to find meat to the story, and that way, when the reader sits down and starts rummaging through your book, they fall in love with not just the characters but with the story itself, and you want to keep them hooked on the story. You want to keep them entertained. That way people are like, okay, I can't wait to read this. I cannot wait to finish this book to see where this story takes these characters. And I'll give an example. I hadn't read a book in a long time, and one day I picked up one of the Halo books. It was The Fall of Reach, and that book just kept me intrigued throughout the entirety of the novel. Like, I just couldn't put it down because Like the plot was so intriguing, even though I already knew what was gonna happen because of the video game. But at the same time, like the plot was so intriguing, the way the author engaged me with the progression of these characters. I didn't want to put the book down. I just wanted to finish it. That way I can learn more about these characters.
Yeah, exactly. And when you were talking, what you were talking about a few weeks back about the whole just going randomly through a forest and then out of nowhere something happens. I think that's the equivalent of horror movies jump scares. You know, they're just put there for no reason at all, or just because the author ran out of ideas and okay, let's make this exciting. Uh, and speaking of that, kind of segues into a plot device that people are starting to hate nowadays, which is known as the Deus Ex Machina.
Oh man, Deus Ex Machina. Those are fun. Not really.
Yeah, they're fun to think about them. You know, I think they'd be fun if they happened in our faces.
Right.
But when it comes to writing, what we mean by that is pretty much, let's say you have a situation. To give you an example, there's this book by a now famous YouTuber called nicknamed Dross for the Spanish speaking audience who know who that is. And in his book, every single conflict or many of the characters' conflicts are always resolved by this almost all powerful entity. So they're in a jam, Wizard saves them. They are confronting a bunch of enemies, Wizard saves them. You know, it's this super powerful wizard that just gets them out of a jam. And that makes the story purposeless. So it makes it seem like, take away all the other characters, let the characters tell what the wizard what they need, and let the wizard handle the whole thing because he's so powerful. What's the need for the other characters? That's what we refer to Deus Ex Machina. When you make something so powerful, it doesn't make sense to have anything else around.
And something very very popular that uses that. A lot of people like we like to joke, and it's one of the most popular jokes when it comes to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Those two trilogies where, or the trilogy of the movie, not the book itself, but you know, it's the eagles. Those eagles in Lord of the Rings and those eagles in The Hobbit. And everyone always asks, like, oh, why can't they? I know it's a joke, but they always ask, like, oh, why can't Gandalf just call on the eagles to like take him all the way to Mordor? Mordor. And that's a plot device right there. That's a Deus Ex Machina. Because if what serves the purpose of the entire book if they can just get the Eagles to pick them up and to take them somewhere else? And granted, to me, the Eagles are a Deus Ex Machina plot device because they're about to die. They're in a really really bad epic battle or whatever, and you have Gandalf calling these Eagles to save them up, to snatch them up and take them somewhere else safe. And to me, that is a fine example of a Deus Ex Machina. Because I mean, yes, they could have, if they kept fighting, they could have easily been overrun and died. But at the same time, there's always that one little thing, that all-powerful creature, being, deity, whatever, that it's just there to pick them up and save them. And to me, it is becoming very, very monotonous. It's not monotonous, but it's just becoming such a
Overuse?
overused thing. Thank you. Very overused in any form of media now, where you're watching these characters trying to struggle, and then something majestically just magically appears, and boom, they're saved. And that's very to me that's very lazy writing, and I don't think it serves the plot in any way whatsoever. That you're out there fighting and doing all these things, and all of a sudden, like, poof, magic, you guys are saved. Yeah, it saves the characters, but to what purpose? Like, we just, you're trying to keep the reader engaged or the viewer engaged, and quite frankly, like that to me takes me away from the immersion of the whole thing, because I'm just like, well, I mean, if you guys were being overrun, why couldn't you just call on this being before to just save you? And that's just very very lazy to me.
Yeah, and now other points have been made, like for example, that the Eagles were really scared of Mordor, that Ariel aerial travel would have been really difficult because they were afraid of the fell beasts that the Nazgul rode. But in any case, it would have been better if you explained that. If you have the Eagles, tell Gandalf, you know what? I'm not going to go in until Sauron is destroyed or until there's a guarantee of our safety because we're the last of our kinds, blah blah blah, yada yada. But it seemed too Deus ex machina, so to speak.
Yeah.
It seemed too overpowerful. It seemed too overkill. It seemed too overkill to just send them at the end when they had not come out uh, since that whole thing with I think it was Saruman,
Yeah, Saruman.
and that's it. And of course, you have the Hobbits once again, not basing from the book because I haven't finished the book. I mean, what I read is amazing, but adult life and whatnot, like I said back then, like I said in the previous episode. But based on the movies, you really just leave the audience. Uh, I guess I guess us critics, right? Us who criticize things in a writer's perspective, you leave us thinking, "Well, this is really lazy writing." You know, like you could have had Frodo and Sam died, and that would have been a more spectacular ending. Or you could have had one of them save the other one by just throwing him into rocks, and he could have gone to safety, and the other one dies. That would have been a little more spectacular. It would have been a bit of a tearjerker. It would have made the story a little more fantastic. But having the Eagles just swoop in when everything else was done with no explanation, without trying to see like, well, you know what, or even have them fight, even have them overcome that supposed fear of the Fell Beast and whatnot. Have some of them die. That would have also been wonderful. And then one of them sees Frodo and Sam, and hey, look, let's go help. But you just have them at the end. That's pretty much what we refer to as Deus Ex Machina, a clear example that I'm pretty sure most of the world knows.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that somebody out there, might comment or might tell us, later on, like, give us a more proper explanation. But this is just like our opinion on the subject matter. And when it comes to plot, and I've been noticing that a lot recently, there's a lot of plot holes. And you watch a movie or you read a book or something, and there's just way too many plot holes in certain things out there where you're just like you try to watching the movie and then all of a sudden you're just like, wait, how did that happen? How did we get here? And I mean, granted, I know that a lot of people have been criticizing it, but I mean, Batman versus Superman, a lot of people have been criticizing it over the plot. Mind you, I actually like the movie. I know a lot of people, give me crap for it, but I mean, I love the movie. It doesn't matter what it is, and to each their own when it comes to your opinion. But I understand that there's a lot of, you watch the movie and there's a lot of plot holes in there. Like, yeah, the plot is essentially missing from the story itself, even though to me it was a good movie. But that's the point that I'm trying to make, is the fact that as a writer, you want to be able to make sure that there's cohesiveness to your plot. Like certain things have to happen in your plot for a specific reason, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. Like, you're trying to make sure that you keep the audience entertained and making sure that the plot makes sense. Because if you're just writing a plot that doesn't make sense whatsoever, then you're gonna lose the reader. You're not like the reader's not gonna be engaged in your story because they're gonna think to themselves like, well, it doesn't matter what happens because in the end everything's just gonna fix itself, And that's why you gotta make sure. You gotta make sure that you try to fix the plot holes if you find any, of course. I mean, and that's why I like talking to friends about certain stories that I'm writing. That way they can look at it or they can read it and be like, okay, well, why is this happening? And I'll look back at it myself. I'll skim through it and, try to come up with a proper solution to make sure that that specific scene or that specific moment in the story find a way to make it make sense.
Yeah, exactly. And that also helps, I guess, as part of the editing process. A lot of people, I guess, the more careful, the more the wiser writer does that. Has other people read them, has his little group of friends, because it's really important. Like, to me, the way my process is, I just go with the flow. I let the story write itself. But when I let the story write itself, extra details just slip in and they're not explained, or they end up being needless. But I guess that goes back into over exposition, which we're trying to avoid right now. But a good example of a plot hole, actually, in early drafts of Inheritance, the last book of Christopher Paolini's Inheritance Cycle, the Aragon series, it's more popularly known. Well, this happened first in Brissinger, which was the third book. They have this battle with this tree because it sounds absurd, but there's this tree. They have to get some wood from it or some sort of metal that got encrusted into it, and then elves go and defend the tree. The tree sends these little elves, or well, sends these elves to fight Aragon and his dragon. And in the early drafts, the tree makes them promise when they come to an agreement. He makes them promise that they're gonna go back and help him some way or another. And then Inheritance doesn't touch that at all. Inheritance doesn't say what happened. Many people can imagine that, like, oh well, he just did it after the book was over and everything. But that's just bull, Like, you have to explain what did they help the tree with? Did the tree make them their servants, like these elves? What really happened? But no, Aragon pretty much became the next Dragon Rider master, I guess, and he trained all the other future Dragon Masters, and they completely neglected the tree. On later drafts, the tree says nothing when they ask them, "What do you want?" or "How can we do anything?" And they covered it, but some people still remember that the tree made them promise that they were gonna help it somehow, and it never happened.
And piggybacking off of that idea, you have to be careful that whenever you're trying to come up with a plot, you gotta understand that. I mean, you have to find a way to see the future when it comes to writing. Yes, we write with the flow, with what and that's what I do that myself too. I have to just see where my fingers take me when I'm writing. And the thing is that you have to learn to be able to predict the future. And that's what I took some advice from one of my creative writing professors, Mr. McCacken, and he told me, one of the good things that you can do when it comes to brainstorming and all that stuff is you make an outline of your story. And that's exactly what I do. I put the title of the chapter, about 2 or 3 bullets under each chapter to make sure, and I write under each chapter what's going to happen in that chapter, because you have to be able to predict the future when you're writing. Once you're able to predict the future when it comes to your writing, then you'll be able to form a more cohesive plot. Because if you're writing about something that happens to your character right now during this instance, and then a few chapters down the line, you completely take that and spin the character and don't even touch back on what happened before. It's kind of, it doesn't make sense, and that's where a plot hole forms. And at the same time, as you're writing future chapters, you have to remember the past chapters. Because, like I said, if you're writing a specific scene set days, months, years later, but you said in one scene that this character, I don't know, like this character has been alone for a long time, and then later down in the future, you put that he used to be married or he's had brothers and sisters, and you kind of have that little plot hole where it's like, well, yeah, but you said that he's been alone, and I get it, it's the human nature of the character, but you have to find a way that you learn, or I mean, I have to learn too myself, but you have to make sure that it makes sense, and that's how plot holes form, because it stops making sense if you give this character a certain aspect later on in the future, but it's not proper, like you said something else about that same character or the story in the past. So you have to know how to control or predict time in your own story. And an outline is a very, very good way to brainstorm. And believe me, it's helped me brainstorming when it comes to my writing, my writing project. It's helped me a lot because I'm able to, even then, like I still need to finish writing stuff, but I have the entire outline for the entire story, so I know exactly what's going to happen. Now I can look at this outline and look for plot holes and look to see if the plot makes sense. And I've caught myself that I'm reading it every now and then. I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense, even though this is way deeper into the story. So I need to go back and find a way to fix it or find a way to fix the future. Either one, you don't want to have a story that's full of plot holes and later on trying to fix it.
Um, yeah, yeah, and that is an excellent point. Bulletins. Always keep writing about your writing. Always keep little notes. Always keep notations. I guess there's people who also use a flowchart if I'm not mistaken. They pretty much start with an idea in the middle and then they start going through like this little web diagram kind of thing until they reach the ending. That's I guess a mistake that the lazy writer, which I'm not specifying anyone, I'm just generalizing that, but that the lazy writer does. They just write and then they see where it takes them. But that's why writing books, at least writing full novels, takes so much. That's why you cannot write something in a month and then try to get it published or jump on to the next thing. I mean, you have to really dedicate time to the plot. You have to really dedicate time to your argument, so to speak. You have to. It's and actually that's a good point. A plot is sort of like an argument. You have to prepare what you're going to talk about and then back it up because you cannot just talk about what you're talking about without facts. Well, when it comes to fiction, when you're making it up, and you might think on the surface it doesn't make sense. But the idea is exactly that you're gonna make this statement, but how are you gonna get from point A to point B of the statement without all these other underlying or these other points to back it up? That's exactly what plot is. Plot is not a linear thing. Plot is not just beginning to end because that's the monotony that I was talking about. You have to bring some dynamic pieces that help complement that argument, that help complement your statement.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about it is that it is very linear. Like, I mean, it's not that too linear, and that's it. We're gonna talk about it in a different episode later down the line. About plot twists and all that stuff and how to properly write them. But that's for a different episode because yeah, a plot you can either follow a specific linear plot or you can just say screw this and find a way for you to make it work. That way, it doesn't have to be a monotonous, linear thing, something that hasn't been done. Because that's what we're all here to do. We're here to be better writers and to find a way to make sure that we find a good outlet for our creativity. And so if we're just gonna do, or I mean, if you do it, hey, good for you. Because I mean, I'm trying my hardest to come up with originality in a time where there's really nothing original anymore, where almost everything has been done before. I mean, there are some good original ideas out there, but deep down inside, you can find little aspects here and there. But anyways, straying away from plot, you have to, like we keep saying, you have to make sure that the plot makes sense because if the plot doesn't make sense, the story just falls apart. And I've seen that in many different media outlets, where you're trying to focus on the plot and they just throw you this curveball or something just stops making sense. And I mean, the whole point of it is that way it doesn't fall apart. And that's what we want to be able to do to write a proper plot, cohesive, and it makes sense. Everything is set in order, and that way at the very end the resolution makes sense. That way at the very end everything that your characters were working hard to achieve throughout this entire story, it makes sense for the resolution. And then you take away the Deus Ex Machina moments, because if everything gets solved by Deus Ex Machina moment, then what's the point of these characters even going through this entire tiresome process and losing people along the way, or losing limbs, or killing and or trying to save the planet, if something just swoops in and all of a sudden just saves the day. And like I said, you have to find a way to make it coherent, cohesive. That way at the end of the day, your reader is entertained, your reader is engaged, and your reader will want to reread it just to make sure that it's a good idea.
Yeah, I guess that pretty much about covers
What we're gonna talk about this first episode, because this technically is episode one. 2 weeks ago, we like to call it episode zero because it's us introducing ourselves, it's us talking about what we want to talk about. So this is technically, by technicality, it is episode one. And like I said, we want to be able to do this at least every weekend if it's possible. If not, then we'll have to find out a way to work around schedules and record as many as we can on a certain day or something like that. But we want to be able to, for the listeners, however many of you are out there, and hopefully we get more listeners out there. We want to be able to get for you guys and girls, just to hear us talk about little things here and there. That way we can all help each other out.
yeah, and I was gonna say that that pretty much covers about my expertise on the matter. Um, it would be cool to have you guys here. Like we're not the only writers in Laredo. I know that, and different points of view would be welcome. We need them. We desperately need them.
Yeah.
And well, we don't want to tire you out. There's so much to talk about plot. I'm pretty sure. There's so much that it's not coming to my mind. I'm pretty sure that Jesse still has a lot more to go on. But like we said before, we don't want to bore you with these huge episodes. Plot will come in and out because everything is interconnected. But this is a basic idea of what we think plot is about, or what has worked for us with plot. I don't know if you want to add any
Yeah,
final
yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, like you said, plot is not something that's gonna take one episode to discuss. It's gonna take multiple episodes because plot is nothing that's supposed to be something so simple. And you're supposed to. There's so many things that cover the whole idea of a novel or a story, whatever the plot of a project. There's just so much. It's a vast amount when it comes to the idea of plot. And we'll cover it in other episodes. And we'll talk about plot one episode, and then we'll move on to other episodes, and then we'll bring back plot. Uh, but like I said, this is our basic ideas when it comes to plot. Later down the line, we will break down specific areas when it comes to plot. Setting it up and talking about conflict resolution or twist and all that stuff. But for now, that's it.
Or the role that characters play into it, which we're also going to have a small sections for characters, like character development, what makes an exemplary villain, an exemplary hero. And like I said, it might all go back to all these ideas because they're interconnected. There's so much to talk about plot that, like I said, right now my mind is just trying to put pieces together of what I remember from classes, from my own personal experience writing a book. But I guess it's so much that we can. There's only so much that we can cram into an episode. But well, I guess from my part, I hope you enjoyed my take on it.
I hope you enjoyed my take on it too. And like we said, if you have any feedback, any comments, make sure to let us know, and we'll discuss as much as we can. Like I was telling a friend of mine, I think I told Nicholas, I'm not sure, but I was hoping that later down the line when we become better at this, we'll have little sections here and there where we'll discuss people's comments and make sure that we talk about what they want to hear. But I guess since this pretty much is going to cover the end of this episode, I don't know if you have any final thoughts to
Well, not really. I'm stumped.
add. But just want to say thank you, like really, really. Like I know it's only been one episode, and this is going to be the second episode, and later we're going to record another episode. But I just want to say thank you to those people who listened to our first episode, to those people that reached out to us and said, "Hey man, good job," or that talked to me about it and say, "Hey, I really enjoyed your episode. I really enjoyed you guys' talking about these things." I just want to say thank you. This is really, really just what we've been looking forward to do because it's really hard to be a writer, and Anybody can tell you that, and if they tell you that it's not that hard, then they're liars because it's really hard to be a writer.
It is, and actually, well, now, if I can add something else, this little exercise proved to me that there is a community out there. We need to interact more. We need to maybe you guys can start your own podcast. Maybe you guys can start blogs. Maybe you guys can uh, make us the audience and let us know your point of view. Like Jesse said, thank all of you very much for listening to us. Thank you for your support. And well, once again, I hope you enjoyed our official first transmission, our first episode, and hope to see you guys soon. This has been Nicolas Trevino,
And Jesse Martinez.
and we wish you all a wonderful Sunday afternoon.